What is potentially one of the issues at the moment, a lack of direction in terms of those low volumes?
Well, that lack of volume is definitely an issue on the market. $4.5 billion traded when the average traded in June was at $5.3 billion. And we have seen lackluster volume all week. But two key themes on the market today. First was the underperformance in the banks. And we did see Moody's downgrading Portugal by 4 notches. And that really hit sentiment and the banking sector. Of course, 40% of wholesale funding 40% of funding by the Australian banks comes from the wholesale market. So some concerns over the banking sector there, but we did see strength in the resource stocks. In fact, the materials sector up by 0.6%. Commodities absolutely soared overnight. Gold prices were up by 2%. An important technical level being breached. Now we're seeing forecasts of up to 2,000 US an ounce in the market. So that was good news for stocks like Newcrest Mining, which was up by 1.8%. We also saw silver prices up by 5%, oil prices up by 2% overnight. But the big winners in the material space were OneSteel and BlueScope Steel. Both of these companies up over 6%. And if you have a look at their charts, actually breaking that downtrend line that has been in place since February. So really good news for these two stocks, and we saw some strong volumes coming through there. So altogether, underperformance in the banks and outperformance by the material sector.
Julia, just quickly on OneSteel and BlueScope, I mean, what do you put the movement down to? Obviously, there have been concerns sentiment-wise around the stocks because of a carbon tax. They will be particularly heavily hit. Is it the idea that we're about to get more certainty come Sunday?
I think if we have a look at OneSteel as well as BlueScope, they have been hit very heavily. And we were talking about these two stocks on Your Money, Your Call yesterday, and it looks like technically they've been set up for a rebound. So if you have a look at the last 3 sessions, they have seen a strong bounce, a breakthrough that downtrend line that has been in place since February. So it does look like a technical bounce at this point in time. However, if we have a look at one of the key factors keeping down OneSteel and BlueScope Steel are the very high iron ore prices. We're seeing them at around about 160 US a tonne. It's been fantastic for iron ore miners, where production costs are about 1/5 of that. But if you have a look at the market for iron ore now, we are expecting to see more supply come onto the market in the next few years. We know that Rio's ramping up its project in Pilbara. Fortescue is, Sundance is looking at its project overseas. So what we are likely to see in the next 3 or 4 years is oversupply in terms of iron ore, and hopefully that will bring down prices. Good news for steel companies like OneSteel and BlueScope, and they've been absolutely hammered since the start of the year.
The numbers, and I suppose the worry being that it could go beyond that, I suppose, if you take the top end, that $7.3 million, because at the moment, don't know when this export ban is going to end. At the same time, we don't know what the relationship is going to be like with India post the ban.
James,
with Indonesia, I should say, sorry.
James, there's a problem when you pull out of market. Australia is responsible, I think, for about 75% of live exports which go out to Indonesia. And when you stop suddenly exporting live cattle to Indonesia, well, you see substitute products coming into the market. So you will see other producers, other exporters filling that gap. So when Australia does remove this ban, what they're going to find is other players are present in that market. So they're going to have to go out and find other markets to be able to expand this industry. Elders coming out today to talk about the impact up to the end of financial year, which ends in September. But beyond that, it really depends on how long it's going to take until this export ban is lifted, and then of course how long it's going to take until business gets back up to previous levels and whether it's able to do so. So I guess the problem in pulling out of a market like Indonesia is that you are going to see other exporters trying to fill that gap, and then trying to get back your business is going to be a struggle as well. So a few challenges for Elders. I guess the two main companies which are impacted on the Australian market are Elders and Australian Agriculture Co. In terms of Australian Agriculture Co, they were in a more enviable position in which they were exceeding their sales targets for the year. So if we don't see too much time in terms of this export ban being lifted, then Australian Agriculture Co shouldn't see too much of an impact because it was already ahead of schedule in terms of its targets. But Elders coming out today to quantify what it thinks is going to be the cost. But of course, it all depends on how long this export ban goes on for.